All right, hello, welcome everyone. This is Guts and Glory. It is Summer Bach here today with Dave Asprey. Dave, hello, welcome.
I'm honored. Which part am I, the guts or the glory part? Because I don't know if I'm either one.
We'll decide at the end. We'll do a
right.
reader's poll, but hopefully you're both.
Nice.
So let me tell everybody a little bit about you. In case you don't know Dave, he's the founder of the Bulletproof Executive. He's a silicone I can't even talk. Why can I talk? Silicone.
I'm actually mostly plastic surgery at this point.
All right, yeah. Let me say silicone next time. Okay, I'm going to start all over. So Dave is the founder of the Bulletproof Executive, a Silicon Valley investor and technology entrepreneur who spent 2 decades and over 300 Gs to hack his own biology. He lost 100 pounds without counting calories or excessive exercise, and he used techniques to upgrade his brain by more than 20 IQ points, which is pretty impressive. He lowered his biological age while learning to sleep more efficiently in less time. And learning to do these seemingly impossible things transformed him into a better entrepreneur, a better husband, and a better father. He's the creator of the widely popular Bulletproof coffee, which all my friends rave about. Everybody loves that stuff. I like to call you the man who put butter in your coffee. And he's the host of the #1 health podcast, the Bulletproof Executive Radio, which is incredible. I highly recommend this show. He's also the author of the New York Times best-selling book, The Bulletproof Diet, which I had the pleasure to finish reading today, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just finished it. And through his work, Dave provides information, techniques, and keys to taking control of and improving your biochemistry, your body, and your mind so they work in unison, helping you to execute at levels far beyond what you'd expect without burning out, getting sick, or allowing stress to control your decisions. So I'm actually have a question for you, because we talk a lot about, in this industry, we talk a lot about, feeling better, feeling awesome, having more energy. Why?
Well, most people, no matter how good they feel, are like, I could use more energy, unless their thyroid is overactive. I can't sleep, I can't stop, I'm too stressed. But even those people would like more energy if they could apply it more accurately. And so if you're applying all your energy to stress, you're not feeling very good, you're jumping around going, ah! But what if you had enough energy to put into your willpower to force yourself to meditate or to do whatever it took biochemically to calm yourself? Then you'd want to have more energy. So it's one of those things. Honestly, having more money is less important than having more energy. And the reason for that is I think that we're wired to thrive and explore, and you have to have enough energy to do that. And you only thrive and explore when you've dealt with the energy problem. And that comes at its core from the mitochondria in your body, the things that make electricity, that powers everything in your body. And it all rolls in there from food and breath and ultimately sunshine and soil. So that's the way we're wired.
I love it. So basically, so we can thrive, explore, and have new adventures.
We're supposed to all kick ass. And if you're not kicking ass, then something's broken. And either it's your hardware or it's your software. And a lot of people assume it's their software. Oh, it's because I didn't try hard enough. It's because I'm a bad person. It's because mommy didn't love me, or whatever, whatever it is. But here's the thing. If you want to fix the software and your hardware isn't working, you don't have enough energy, then it's really hard to do self-improvement, personal growth, meditation, all those things, because you get distracted when your biology is breaking. So fix the biology, and then all the other stuff becomes easier.
I love it. So, okay, I have a few questions for you. I really enjoyed reading your book, and it's very fresh in my mind. You said the word gut biome a lot. Why did you choose gut biome versus saying microbiome?
Most people don't know what microbiome is. It is a super scientific word, and gut, most of us know what it is. And gut bacteria is relatively understandable. So the idea that the biome is inclusive of fungus and bacteria in the gut is important, since most research completely ignores the fungal biome, which is at least as complex as the bacterial biome. So we have a lot of work to do, and it's an ecosystem that's in the gut. So I chose that word because it was more accessible than microbiome, and it also makes it more like where it is in the body versus, does your microbiome include your armpit bacteria? Because it actually does, but I didn't really write much about that except that you stink less when you eat Bulletproof, but that's a small thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, and microbiome is really like the genetic makeup of all of these bacteria, which means nothing to almost everyone. There's like a handful of scientists out there that could actually translate what that, that data meant. So I thought that was great. Thank you for making this easy for us to understand.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, okay. I have so much I want to talk about with you.
Let's do it.
I wish we had a few days to keep going, but we're going to kind of just like jump around if you don't mind.
All right. We'll hang out.
We'll jump around. I think a few things stood out to me. One is you really talk about, you use this term Labrador brain. And I've heard people use critter brain along these lines, or my client used to say, I feel like I have this part of my brain that's like a guinea pig, and I'm either pulling it around on a leash or holding it and petting it and, walking around with it like a sane person. I'm like, what sane person walks around with a guinea pig? Okay. Anywho, so tell us a little bit about this whole like Labrador brain and how that affects your life.
The Bulletproof diet is ultimately about having more willpower. And I didn't put that on the cover because people don't associate diet with willpower, but really you want to have that energy. It comes from that spark that makes you who you are. And we have these kind of three parts of the brain, the brain stem, like the very basic temperature regulation things. And we share that with so many other animals. But there's parts we share with all mammals. And I kind of call that your Labrador brain, because a Labrador retriever, we can all visualize a big dog. It drools, knocks things over with its tail. But think of what the three things a Labrador will always do. One is you make a noise or throw a stick, it's like, huh, and it's gone. Okay, your brain does the same thing. It's when you're distracted. And we're all wired this way because paying attention to the environment around you keeps tigers from eating you. Like, it's a survival thing that all mammals share. And so the fact that you got distracted by this shiny object is part of your Labrador brain going, ooh, new novel. The second thing a Labrador retriever will do is you're walking down the street and it goes, oh, look, week old Taco Bell in the gutter tacos, I love it. And it'll eat it and then throw up all over the place. Okay? It'll eat anything. Okay. Now, you ever had a food craving? That's your Labrador going, oh, look, I should eat that. And this is a thing that happens before you think about it. It does that as a survival thing. It's faster than your conscious thoughts. Be like, ew, gutter tacos. It's like, I'm already done eating it. Right? And then the final thing that the Labrador does, one of my personal favorites, is it sees your leg. It's like, oh, I'll go hump your leg. Okay. Reproduction of the species. So those three things pretty much make up everything that you've ever regretted comes from one of those sources. And at its core, when you follow the principles in the Bulletproof diet, some of them very specifically around timing of carbohydrate and even allowing your gut bacteria to boss you around on your fat loss and fat storage, you actually can turn off the hunger part. So instead of having to deal with three parts of the Labrador brain, it's like not hungry. Like you could put a piece of raw bone in front of Labrador. It's like, oh, good God, I'm just going to go back to sleep. That's what my body does around food after I've fueled it properly. Before, I would eat something and it'd be like a typical Labrador. Oh my God, do you have more food? More? Can't ever eat? I use Bulletproof diet on my dog. Like, he doesn't have coffee and chocolate because those are bad for dogs, but he has the brain octane oil and he has a high fat, in his case, meat-centric diet with a little bit of vegetables, and he doesn't have food cravings. Like, he doesn't walk around pestering me, and he's a dachshund, which is like one of the most food-obsessed breeds ever. So I do the same thing for my inner Labrador, which means all I have to deal with is basically humping people's legs and being distracted. And it's a lot easier to deal with those because I have more energy from my food and because I'm not also thinking about food all the time.
Now I know why I like hanging out with you so much.
Sorry about that leg thing.
Yeah. It's, I'll see you later this week. Make sure and wear pants. So I wanted to share this. Like, this is your whole Bulletproof diet roadmap. Printed this out here, all nice and neat. Where can people find this?
Just go to bulletproofexec.com and you can sign up for the email list and we'll send it to you. This is basically the skeleton, the framework for the whole Bulletproof diet book. I give it away for free, and I have since I started the blog, because it tells you what foods are more inflammatory or less inflammatory, which foods might be causing major problems for you but are okay for your friends, and vice versa. And it tells you, when to eat what. So it's basically the one-page cheat sheet for how to eat for maximum willpower, to not have any food cravings anymore, and to have your brain work all the way. And when your brain works all the way, your pants suddenly need to get smaller because your butt got smaller.
Yeah, that's always nice. I mean, as long as it's from fat and not muscle. We always like when the muscle makes the butt bigger.
That's true. Got to do some squats for that.
Got to do a few squats, ride some bicycles uphill. Okay, so here's my biggest question about that, kind of speaking of riding bikes and squats. In terms of the Bulletproof diet, what about athletes? What about people who are training? Like, let's say somebody's training for Ironman, or they're, riding their mountain bike every day, and wanting to increase their endurance. So like actually start to do longer rides or longer training sessions. How does that work on such, like, I think you recommend something around 5% carbs, a fairly low carb intake. Is that possible?
Well, it's actually a varying amount of carbohydrates depending on time of day and activity level. So it doesn't have to be 5% carbs, and I recommend you cycle your carbs. Once you become fat adapted, and the idea is you want to be in ketosis, fat burning mode a lot of the time, and out of it some of the time. If you're always in ketosis, you run into some potential problems there, and if you're never in ketosis, you run into other potential problems. So going in and out of ketosis is a great idea. And when athletes do this, they perform so much better. All the endurance athletes are doing high fat right now. They might also be doing carbs. In fact, I don't think a high fat diet, exclusively high fat, is optimal for endurance athletes. I also don't think endurance athletics is optimal for living a very long time either. Like, it takes something out of you to do a marathon every couple of weeks. And there's lots of endurance athletes and powerlifters, by the way, bodybuilders who tend to die at unusually young ages for people who are, quote, so healthy. Right. One of my friends from Silicon Valley, semi-professional cyclist, died at age 40 on a training ride, even though he was in ripped and perfect shape and all this stuff. The guy was one of the first people who invented one of the technologies behind the internet today with blade servers. And this sort of thing happens with regularity when you're not eating right on endurance athletics. And funny enough, your heart's your heart's preferred source of fuel is fat. It's ketones. So I would say if you're going to be pushing your body really hard with endurance athletes, you can do it safely, but a high-fat diet is part of that, but a zero-carb diet probably isn't part of that. So for athletes, the brain octane oil, the stuff that converts most quickly into ketones, is about 6% of what's in coconut oil. That stuff can get you ketones, so you can drink Bulletproof coffee before you go out on the big waves. And Laird Hamilton, one of the world's foremost big wave surfers, talks about doing exactly that. And there's all sorts of other things. Fighters, you want to have all that fat power, but at a certain point, you're like, all right, I'm running out of ketones. Is it okay to have carbs? Absolutely, it's okay to have carbs.
Mayweather didn't run out of any of those this weekend.
Yep.
But
I heard he was just eating like licorice and donuts, isn't that right?
Probably.
I have no idea.
Some people are just genetically superior, okay? And then there's some people who, kind of either, whether it's like their environment, they've been exposed to maybe a lot of toxins, or, high stress, got sick a lot as a child, had to take a lot of antibiotics. I feel like there's a lot of setups that people get exposed to. Like I had that, it happened to me. I was super sick, and I just kept getting sicker up through my mid-20s, to the point where like I had multiple chemical sensitivity. I had terrible digestion. I was allergic to everything. I had about 6 months out of the year where my eyes were almost swollen shut from pollen. And I felt like I couldn't function, and my stress was so high. I had panic attacks, and it was just like cortisol, like cycling, not breaking down. I've never felt so bad in my life, and it was for years. And the anxiety that came along with it was tremendous. So, I think about that, and then I think about all the clients that I work with. I think about stories like yours, and all these people who have just, for whatever reason, have like, whether it's their environment or genetics or the combination of both. Somebody today said, what, genetics is the gun and the environment is the trigger. And, I just think that's so brilliant. But we have this setup. People are sick. So I guess I'm curious at that point, like, how do we start to unravel this? And like, what is the first step in that process?
Well, you could certainly get like a 23andMe genetic test and look at your methylation pathways, which is relatively cheap. It's $99. And like, oh, look, my body has a hard time with folic acid, something that is by law put into a whole bunch of foods that are fortified to stop birth defects, but they're fortified with a form of folic acid that is toxic to a third of people. So I don't take supplements with folic acid in them. I take supplements with methyl folate because my body can handle that. And the ones that are made, some of them from big companies that have that in them, I don't consider it ethical to sell anything that contains something that makes a third of people sick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so intense to me. I mean, yeah. So you're saying kind of like look at your channels of elimination, your detox channels, start to make sure that that's happening. And then do you feel like, you know, with the Bulletproof diet, I mean, I feel like there's one of the best aspects of it is its inflammatory, anti-inflammatory action.
There are doctors using the Bulletproof diet all over the place. They print out the infographic and give it to their patients because inflammation is behind cancer. Inflammation is behind heart disease. Inflammation is behind just about every chronic degenerative disease that we have. Inflammation isn't behind a broken leg, right? Maybe inflammation was tied to loss of bone density and then you broke your leg more easily, but you had to do something. That's trauma. And doctors are amazing at fixing trauma. And trauma causes inflammation that's acute. But chronic inflammation just messes you up. And oftentimes it messes up your brain first because it's one of the more sensitive organs to inflammatory cytokines in the body. So what I did in the Bulletproof diet is I just ranked, okay, you want to eat some fat? These fats don't cause cravings. These fats have a lot of energy. These fats generally are less inflammatory. These are moderately inflammatory fats, and these are like really bad fats. And I do the same thing for protein. The idea that, oh, like plant-based protein is good for you. You know my favorite plant-based protein?
What?
It's ricin, the nerve gas. It comes from plants and it kills like incredibly powerfully, right? So obviously this is evidence that all plant-based protein is bad for you and you should never eat it. Well, that same logic was used against animal-based protein because casein from milk, which isn't good for you and is associated with cancer, at least in some animals some of the time. Casein is also animal-based. So like in the China study, this kind of misguided book about veganism said, well, because this one animal protein is bad, all animal protein is bad. I'll tell you my other favorite animal protein is spider venom. So animal and plant-based doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell you if it's inflammatory. It doesn't tell you if it's good or bad. It's junk, right? It doesn't matter. The same thing goes for fats. Is a saturated fat or a polyunsaturated fat better? I don't know. Fish oil is a polyunsaturated fat. It's kind of a good one, right? Soybean oil is polyunsaturated. It's bad for you. So there's 30 or so different lengths of fatty acids, and they do different things to your body. So oversimplification is one of the biggest problems we have. And in the Bulletproof Diet infographic, the whole point is like, well, like you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know all the whys, but these are generally better. These are generally okay, and they might really mess you up. You don't know. They're suspect. You have to eliminate suspects. And these are like, no human should eat them unless you're going to die of starvation.
Yep, absolutely. So I mean, it's amazing. I love that you put this into context with the extremes, and we're so quick to call things, you know, like to create a category and classify it as something that's not okay for anyone ever.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So a lot of issues that I work with people around have to do with the gut. Like they stem from, well, they stem somewhat from the gut, but also, as you know, like having the wrong bacteria growing in your body can make more toxic waste appear, and then your body has to deal with that. It can cause all sorts of problems. Right. So, you know, I'm thinking a lot about this concept of gut rebuilding with my clients and with, you know, my family when I work with them and myself. And what I found really interesting is this whole concept that, you know, you can take probiotics and start to gain weight, you know?
Oh yeah, totally.
It's, you know, it's like bringing in these good bacteria can have some negative effects for people. And then, I mean, but healing your gut is important. How do you decide what kinds of bacteria to bring into your body and when?
Well, I don't actually believe in the notion of good bacteria and bad bacteria. Like most people have Clostridium in the gut, but you don't get sick from it. My grandmother right now just got out of the hospital from Clostridium. What's different? It's the environment that changes whether these are pathogenic or not. And one of the things that you can do in my whole book, the context is biohacking, like change the environment around you in order to change your genes, change your behavior, change your gut, change everything about you. So the idea, I just want it to change, I'm going to will it, it doesn't work. Like, I want it to change, so I change the temperature in the room, and then my body changed in response to that. Oh my God, isn't that amazing? It's actually obvious when you think about it, but still, that's not how we position the world. So the idea that we will unconsciously change in response to the world is cool. So here's something that pisses me off about gut bacteria. Gut bacteria made me fat. I was on antibiotics for about 15 years every month, because I kept getting chronic strep and chronic sinus infections, which generally, if you have them that often, it means you're living in a water-damaged building, which is the subject of a documentary that I have coming out in June. because it's affecting like 100 million people more so than everyone, which it does affect. So this has become an endemic problem that's affecting ADD in kids. It's making adults get cancer and fat and things like that. It makes you fat and weak. But in my case, what happened was my gut flora was clearly imbalanced, and fat people tend to have more of certain types of bacteria, and they have more Firmicutes, which is interesting because you can take a thin person and give them the poop from a fat person, and then the thin people get fat because the gut bacteria make you fat. Those little bastards, the good bacteria, because guess what's in Firmicutes? Lactobacilli are in there. So not all lactobacilli will make you fat. It depends on your environment, but some of them will. And here's why. If your gut bacteria, even one that we consider to be good, you actually don't care about the person you live in. All it is a walking petri dish life support system for you. And you're going to manipulate your environment as a little bacteria to the very best of your ability. So look at what happens in, say, in mice when they have no bacteria in their gut whatsoever. They can eat anything and they just are walking around lean and ripped. Like they look like they're on steroids and they're not. So you have these little super mice. So then you drop one pellet of mouse poop into their environment, and now the biome changes the environment, and they get 60% body fat in 2 weeks. They bloat up. So what's going on here? What's going on is these little bacteria that are supposed to be good, they sit in your gut, and they create a substance called FAF, fasting-induced adipose factor. Your liver does that just fine, thank you very much. You don't need a bacteria to do that for you. Your liver has it perfect. And that is something that says when you fast, burn fat. When there is fuel present, store fat. Pretty straightforward, right? The bacteria are like, wow, man, I don't want my petri dish, this human, to run out of any kind of fuel if there's a famine. So every time I have sugar, I'm just going to send out extra signals that say store fat. So I'm going to make my host store extra fat quickly, just in case I need it later. Okay? And then when the bacteria is like, oh my God, I have no sugar, I'm going to starve, it sends an extra signal to the body. It says burn fat really fast to make sure that you can like get away from tigers and all, because I don't want my petri dish to get eaten, because then I'd get eaten. So what's going on here is these little bastards, they hacked your system. They took over the signaling of your liver about whether you should store fat or not store fat. And one of the things you can do with the Bulletproof diet is you can whack those little bastards over the head. And here's how you do it. You use Bulletproof coffee. Bulletproof coffee is mold-free, lab-tested coffee beans, brain octane oil, also known as caprylic acid, that's super high purity, so it doesn't make you poop in your pants, which happens with impure stuff. It has no flavor when it's made right. Most caprylic acid tastes like goats. That's why it's called Capra, like Capricorn, goat. So we make it without any flavor. And then grass-fed butter, which also contains butyric acid. When you take fat and coffee together, at least as a mouse, there's a study on this, it shifts the ratio of Firmicutes to Bacteroidetes. Thin people have more Bacteroidetes, and fat people have more Firmicutes. So what happens is fat of any sort, but particularly these fats, smack all of the bacteria in your gut over the head. But then the polyphenols in coffee are the food source for the Bacteroidetes. So what you're doing is you're saying smack, and then you feed the ones you want, and then they grow back because you just got rid of their competition. So what you're doing is you're shifting what's going on inside your gut just by what you have in the morning. But if you add a teaspoon of sugar there, you totally wreck it. Because now those little things that are making you fat are like, oh, it's got some sugar. Hey, baby, store some fat. In fact, here's some butter. Stick it right in. It doesn't actually work like that, but it's that sort of a thing. So that matters greatly, and I don't trust those gut bacteria. They do not have my best interest in mind. They have their best interest in mind, so I'm going to change their environment so they'll do what I want them to do, because they're bastards.
Yeah, you got to change the bioterrain. It's so important. Yeah. Like I always say, you know, when you decide to stop eating sugar, and then all of a sudden you're standing at the freezer that evening, like shoveling ice cream into your mouth, or like you find yourself in the car on the way to the gas station to get some Ben & Jerry's, like that's not you. You decided not to eat sugar. That's the bacteria being like, feed me now, please.
I think it's more the bacteria in your head. Sorry, the Labrador in your head listening to the bacteria. But also, if you have hypoglycemia, you're going to have that problem, right? Your hypoglycemia will drive you to want sugar. And if your gut bacteria are underfed, they'll make toxins because they're stressed, and that'll drive you to get sugar. So there's two separate pipelines. But bottom line is, if you have a food craving, Summer, it's totally your fault.
Ooh, like, tell me why.
On the Bulletproof diet, there are no food cravings. And every single time one pops up, you just look at, what did I do? Yeah. And like, one of the most recent food cravings I had was bizarre. I was using a super stinky kind of solvent in the garage. And I should have had the door open more than I did. And I only used it for a second. Well, I took about 3 breaths of it, and it kind of smelled like burning, and not good. And about a half hour later, I'm like, good God, I really want to eat something like full of sugar. I don't eat sugar. But what had happened there was my liver was like, could I have some extra glucose to oxidize this crap you just put into me? I need to get rid of it. And so since there's only so much glucose in my body, I could put the glucose in my brain and use it for willpower and thinking and being human, or I could put it in my liver to use it for not dying. And the body was like, could I just have more? So you know what I did? I ate some sugar.
Nice.
Not very much.
You were like, I'm going to listen to you, body. I hear you.
Exactly. I didn't eat a lot. And, that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that was a craving. It was one that I knew why it happened, and okay. But anytime there's a craving, there is always a reason. Because when your body is fed right, there are no cravings.
I love that. Well, okay, so let's chat a little bit more about this whole Bulletproof coffee thing, because I will just admit, I have a hard time drinking coffee.
Are you a bad person? Oh my goodness.
I'm a really bad person. It does, like, I've tried it and I get a little stressed out. I get this like vein that like wants to pop out in my head. And I mean, I feel like I call myself like, I'm wired like a chihuahua without a sweater on, just all the time, you know? And so I add coffee to that mix. The sweater doesn't even touch it. It doesn't help me calm down at all. So, you know, the coffee thing, I still haven't figured out how to get on board with that because I love it. I mean, I'd say it's my number one addiction. It's the thing I crave almost every day.
Why don't you just do decaf?
It still gets me.
Really?
Chocolate, coffee, they all have the same effect. It's like, it just like gets in there and it gets me jacked up. It's fine for the first few days, but after about a week, it's starting to be a problem. And after 2 weeks, it's like a serious problem. Like I don't sleep well.
Decaf coffee after 2 weeks makes you not sleep.
Even chocolate does this.
But chocolate has more caffeine than decaf coffee.
Either one. I've tried it. Yes.
You've tried like real decaf coffee? Like my decaf coffee?
I haven't tried your decaf coffee. They never sent me any of your decaf. I didn't know.
I'll send you some decaf. Here's what goes on. When most people say, I can't do coffee or I can't do chocolate, okay, how do you do on caffeine, tablets, or tea?
Not so great.
Not so great, okay. So you may be one of the people who's actually caffeine sensitive. And
that's probably it.
You can get that same 23andMe test we talked about. They'll tell you whether you're a caffeine slow metabolizer. But there's different degrees of slow metabolism, or maybe your liver is just messed up by something else, some health history thing. But if you're a slow metabolizer, decaf coffee should be something that you tolerate just fine. If it's not, the vast majority of people who say, I can't handle coffee and chocolate, they actually can't handle the toxins that come from the way it's fermented. My coffee, including my decaf, is the only decaf like this on the planet as far as I know. It's not fermented. And it's lab tested for mycotoxins. Okay. So the cranky, jitter, wired, like coffee, I'm going to kill you feeling, that actually comes not from caffeine for most people. It comes from the toxins in the coffee.
Oh, from like the mycotoxins.
Yeah. You can also get an adrenal effect from coffee that can do that for you, especially if you're on like a zero carb diet for a long period of time. But I'll tell you, the adrenal effects don't seem to happen nearly as much if you're drinking coffee that doesn't have these toxins. The reason is that when these toxins hit the kidneys, the primary coffee toxin is called ochratoxin A. It's a product of soil fungus, aspergillus mostly. And during the fermentation of the coffee, it grows. And here's the problem. Most of the world's governments have put regulations about the amount of this toxin in coffee in place, but not the US. So the coffee that's not legal to sell in Europe or Asia makes its way to the US, and then we drink it. And that sucks. So I'm actually working to change American legislation so that we're at least on par with Europe, so that we can then send the nasty coffee somewhere else. Or better yet, we just figure out how to solve the problem. And that's something that at Bulletproof we have done. Like we change our coffee processing at the mill to eliminate one of the largest places where mycotoxins happen in coffee production.
Wow.
But decaf is, on a global basis, allowed to have twice the toxin of normal coffee because no one would take good quality coffee and decaffeinate it. So it's always the moldier coffee that gets decaffeinated because the flavor is ruined anyway. So if decaf jacks you up, it's not your caffeine problem, it's something else in the coffee. And that, I would bet, would be mycotoxins. For me, I drink decaf coffee from most places the first day. I'm like, like I feel really bad. It's not caffeine. I drink normal coffee from a corner coffee shop. The odds are extremely high that I'm going to kind of just be tired, maybe sore joints, headache, and just cranky. And I'm more sensitive than the average person because I've had water damage in my bedroom. I lived in a house with Stachybotrys, which caused permanent autoimmune changes in me. So I do believe you may be dealing with something else that's not caffeine. Chocolate, by the way, is also high in OTA. It's more of a problem in chocolate than it is in coffee even. I
will do some experimentation and some testing to find out because I am curious if it is the caffeine, if it's the mold or whatever. Because, yeah, it is an issue. But what I do like of yours, okay, I'll tell you my favorite. These are my favorite things. And I want you to talk about them a little bit. So this is like my favorite right now.
Unfair advantage.
This is all I have left right now. I have one.
You're down to one?
I have more in my bike bag. If you look in my bike jerseys in my bike bag, they're in there. I love this stuff. It's basically CoQ10, right?
No.
What?
CoQ10 is just there to help absorption. It's a very small amount of CoQ10.
That's not the main thing in here. The main thing is the PQQ.
It's not even just PQQ. So you can get PQQ at Whole Foods right now, but when you take it, it turns into precipitate in the stomach. Mm. So this is a new form of PQQ that we synthesize ourselves instead of buying it from the one manufacturer. And it's called active PQQ. So we take that and we put it in a colloidal delivery system, those little ampules that you saw. You just tear the lid off and it tastes like fruit and you drink it and it enhances mitochondrial function for about 6 hours, about 10,000 redox cycles. And if you take it regularly, that compound in there, PQQ, in studies helps your body to naturally grow more mitochondria. It's in a process called mitogenesis. So what you're doing is you're changing the way you feel. And this is the world's first whole body, broad spectrum nootropic. And that you take it, your brain has the most mitochondria, you feel it there first, and then usually you feel it kind of in your chest, and then your muscles, your whole body is stronger. So I take 4 of those a day, and it is the most important supplement I've made in my career. It's a total breakthrough because you cannot feel PQQ at any dose. I've taken $100 worth of it in one day of the normal PQQ. It's quite expensive, and you cannot feel a thing. You take 10 milligrams of this, and you're like, oh yeah, my brain's back on. So you stack this with Bulletproof coffee, which raises your ketone levels just enough to turn off hunger and to give you some extra brain energy, and you're like I could pick up that refrigerator. Yeah. You just feel so strong.
Yes, this is how I get my Queen of the Mountains on Strava, right here.
Sweet.
Yeah, I got 2. Okay, so here's my other favorite. This is, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to say what everybody else is thinking. First of all, I love glutathione force, but I'm going to say what everybody else is thinking, which is this packaging is creepy.
Oh, you like it.
Yes. So talk to me about this glutathione force and
all right.
And tell me also this. So I broke my finger. Is this going to help? That's my other question.
Maybe. Probably not as much as the collagen will help you, but that's upgraded collagen. Another thing for bones. Your bones have collagen.
This?
That's
on the list, folks. Okay.
So Bulletproof collagen for helping your body recover naturally from anything like that. There's lots of studies of collagen and bone density and that says when people eat a collagen-rich diet that they can naturally keep their bones more dense. So I use that stuff anytime I have an injury. I take extra collagen. Anytime I exercise, I take extra collagen.
So how much extra? So we'll go back to the glutathione force in just one second.
Right, yeah.
So let's talk about this because this answers the pinky question. So how much extra? Because it says take a tablespoon.
So most people get no collagen in their diet anymore. Your grandmother used to make Jell-O or boil the chicken carcass for a while to get all that stuff off, and then that was just something we did. Collagen lets your skin be hydrated, which lets electrons flow through your acupuncture meridians. So you use collagen to store water there. It's also the matrix that forms your bones, matrix that forms most of the connective tissue, especially hair and nails. So if you don't want wrinkles, you use collagen. So a sort of maintenance dose is a tablespoon a day. But if you're looking at injury recovery or you're lifting weights and all, it's a low inflammation protein compared to, say, whey protein, which is a high inflammation protein. So I will do, or if you're resetting your leptin because you're leptin resistant, you've got a lot of weight to lose, I'll do 30 grams, which is basically 4 or 5 tablespoons in my morning coffee. I recommend that amount. And you can do that for a month or two. And it can totally change things because you're having protein and fat in the morning.
Awesome. Okay, that's fantastic. I will up my dose till this heals.
All right. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, so, okay,
now,
the glutathione force. And another thing. I have to warn people. So I like this. I take it. I feel like it does something. And I'm not one of those people who just takes things randomly. Like, if I don't feel an effect, I will stop taking it. If it's not somehow noticeable, my brain won't even think to take it. And the things I'm showing everybody today, like that, you know, like I've tried some of your other products. These are my favorites. I notice a difference. But this,
oh, yeah, so do I.
This stuff does not taste good.
You know, give me about 3 more months and there's going to be a new flavor. We've been hard at work on this.
Really?
Here's why this stuff is different. So glutathione is a very big, very complex molecule, and your liver makes it, and it's in almost every cell in your body. It's sort of the master antioxidant. And when your liver doesn't have enough glutathione, you start getting liver damage. Tylenol depletes glutathione. Alcohol depletes glutathione. Toxins deplete glutathione. So if you can help your liver have more or make more, or help your cells have more, particularly your brain, which loves glutathione, then like you perform better. So we used to try and take glutathione orally, and then your stomach digests it, and basically it becomes very expensive nothing. So the first generation glutathione orally was in something called a liposome, which is basically a ball of fat with a glutathione stuck in the middle. And that works, but it only works in the top 5 inches of your GI tract. So you have to swish it around your mouth. It also tastes really bad, and then it stops working as soon as it hits basically the top of your swallowing system. Glutathione force is different though, because we use a liposome, but we also insert a molecule called a lactoferrin, which your body loves. So it absorbs in studies 5 to 8 times better than a standard liposome. So it's a lot of technical stuff, but what it means is you take it, and this glutathione can absorb all the way through your GI tract. It goes into the cell wall and it soaks through, and that's why you feel the difference. By the way, you can get intravenous glutathione, which will totally rock your world. It just costs like $150 and takes a while. You have to drive somewhere and it's inconvenient. This is what I do when I travel. I take those things. I take a couple doses once or twice a day. And it keeps your body's levels high when you're exposed to toxins and jet fuel and hotel air and whatever they're putting in your food, and just makes you more resilient. So it's one of those things. I make products that I can't buy anywhere else, products that I want to use for myself, and like making the world's 4th best vitamin C is just not very exciting. But having a product like that, it changes people. It's actually a very popular supplement despite the obnoxious sulfur flavor. The new stuff is really good, so stick with me. We'll get to the new stuff as soon as it's finalized and we finish all of our testing and all. But I've had a couple samples and it's better. So
yeah, I have a system now where I put it on a spoon and I basically put that little ball of it in my mouth and then swallow it. Maybe I'm like, I don't know, messing with the quality there, not the quality, but the absorption. But
that's just fine.
I don't like swishing it. My copywriter, I got her some of this so she could help us write a little bit more about it. And her solution was to put it in some food and like mix it up so it would taste better. And then she like got stuck with this whole mouthful, and she couldn't do it. So anywho, all right, I'm gonna tell you the last one. The last thing I really like is your Gaba Wave. This stuff is great. It's fantastic.
Gaba Wave is a form of GABA that is also liposomal, and most people have never experienced something like this because it's very powerful when you take it that way. In fact, it's like the first time you take it, don't even operate heavy machinery. Like, see what it will do to you. There are professional race car drivers who take it because it tends to lower stress and anxiety, even from like physical vibration and heat and just stress in the body. So you're like, I was feeling really stressed and now I feel calm but focused. So you have this focus all day, and then nighttime comes and you're like, okay, you just go out and you make a lot of growth hormone when you sleep really deeply. So it helps you sleep deeply. So that stuff is just a profound effect for some people. Other people don't like how they feel on it, but It's one of those things where it's hard to believe a supplement is that strong.
I absolutely love it. I recommend it for people when they have trouble like with stress for the most part. It's my absolute favorite one. Okay, so I know we got to wrap things up. So I just want to, first of all, I just want to thank you, not just for being here and like, let me ask you all these different questions that I've stored up in my brain over the past little while here to ask you, but also thanks for just being a pioneer, you know, and like making these products. Yes, I know that you made them for yourself, but you also made them for everyone else. So I just really appreciate that you've taken the time to do this. It's so helpful.
Well, thanks, Summer. Thanks for letting me know that they're working for you. I had no idea that if or that you were still taking these. I think I sent you some a while back, but I had no idea that they were working and they're working for you. So just thanks for letting me know, because you know, I was a successful executive in computer security. I could still do that. I started Bulletproof just because I couldn't get the stuff, and also because I really like helping people. So just knowing that it works, and that it works enough for you to put it in your jersey when you're cycling, like, awesome. Like, that's why I'm doing it. So thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Well, everybody go check out Dave's website. Also check out his new movie all about mold. Well, the movie's called Mold. Is that right?
It's called Moldy. In fact, you can go to bulletproofexec.com/moldy and sign up for it. I'll tell you about a hidden source of kryptonite in your life and what to do about it. And we're going to do a free screening. So I just want people to know about this. This is affecting millions and millions of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So go check that out. And then also they can go to your main website as well, the bulletproofexec.com. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, bulletproofexec.com.
Everyone, thanks for being here for another episode of Guts and Glory. And Dave Asprey, I really am just so glad that you're here. Thanks so much.
Summer, thanks for putting on a great show. I look forward to hanging out with you again soon.
All right. See you soon.